Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the debut album from Ella Henderson, titled Chapter 1. Now I've said before that I tend to keep a healthy distance from any pop project backed by Simon Cowell and his label Syco Records. At this point, it's self-preservation, really. It's not even that Simon Cowell makes bad pop music. If anything, his musical projects from his label fall more in the lines of intensely bland pop slurry that are riveted to following major trends instead of actually leading them or defining a new sound. The sort of material that's pretty much guaranteed to sell to a less discerning public, which is a real damn shame. Because what blows my mind is that people have not picked up on this yet, or at least in the broader population. I mean, it's not like he hasn't been a major public figure in pop music and the music talent show circuit for years now. You'd think somebody would have noticed this beyond the critical press. If you want to know why so many American Idol and X Factor winners pretty much vanish off the face of the earth after dropping debut albums through his record label, it's because they aren't marketed as unique personalities or given the chance to develop those unique personalities, but instead are just more product in the assembly line of pop stars. The personality boiled down to the broadest essentials for all sorts of mass demographic appeal. And sure, it can make for short, entertaining flashes in the pan, but longer-term careers in pop are based more off of unique personality. And if you want to know why so many appear in the spotlight for just a brief second before dropping off the face of the earth, as I said, well, now you know why, and now you know who to blame. In other words, I wasn't exactly interested in to dig into the newest album, the debut album from Ella Henderson, a performer who placed 6th on the 9th season of X Factor, despite being one of the biggest favorites to win that season. Despite that, she was picked up by Syco Records and was apparently given significantly more creative freedom. And indeed, she's got writing credits on nearly every song of this album. And that hasn't stopped her from retaining a fair amount of well-charting hits on the UK pop charts. But let's make this clear, just because an act charts in the UK doesn't mean it's anything close to good. Thanks to a lack of recurring rules and a smaller population, all sorts of weird crap pops up on the UK charts all the time. It's really endemic there. But to be fair, Ella Henderson didn't seem to be a flash in the pan. The fact that she didn't win X Factor and still got signed, coupled with solid critical reviews for this record and beating Jessie J's sales in the UK for this album, maybe she was the real deal. So I decided with perpetual lateness to give her debut album Chapter 1 a fair listen. So how is it? Well, for a pop debut this year, it's actually pretty good. Nothing that blew my mind or was all that revolutionary or was even all that great, but considering we're looking at a Syco Records product, Ella Henderson's Chapter 1 did manage to surprise me by having a little bit more heft and power than I would have expected. But since she's coming off of Simon Cowell's record label and I know how he pushes acts, I think it's time I break out my 3 criterion for debut pop albums. See if Ella Henderson manages to check off all the boxes properly and actually manage to put together a debut record that might have some staying power, or that she might be able to pull together a sophomore release. So let's start with that first part, establishing the artist's brand. And upon the first few listens, Ella Henderson did not start off strong. Sure, her voice had a throaty, passionate quality that gave her a lot of presence on some of the songs, and if she manages her career right, she could probably make a killing in musical theater or in the right musical on TV or in movies. But as expected, her instrumentation fell straight into the category of percussion-heavy, reverb-saturated pop that I've heard time and time again throughout this year, lacking a lot of real instrumental color and personality. Now, to be fair to her, she does have some pretty strong melodies behind her when they are given more focus in the mix. Ghost has a pretty gripping chorus that balanced well against the pop-flavored guitars. Mirror Man has this scratchy, retro 60s pop vibe with a stellar guitar line that I really liked. And then on the majority of the softer piano ballads, Ella brought a lot of potent emotion that shows a lot of potential from her. If she was looking to step into the more of the Baroque, retro pop fame, I could see her really standing out. Mostly thanks to the fact that her vocals are less Lana Del Rey and Meghan Trainor and more of Leah Michele, or even with some of her whistle note moments, a little bit closer to Mariah Carey. Of course, unlike Mariah, who never seems to really try and still sounds gorgeous, you can tell Ella Henderson is working her ass off to infuse her material with an abundance of dramatic emotion, which takes us to our second major point, making sure the artist is placed in the best possible light. And here, it's honestly hit and miss. While there are songs that try to overproduce her vocals, like on Empire, Give Your Heart Away, and Rockets, the vocal production is actually eased back significantly, more than I was expecting, which does wonders for highlighting her vocal power. It's very telling that nearly half of this album, though, is stripped back acoustic or piano tracks, because you can tell there wasn't a lot of money money put behind this album for richer orchestration, or producers that could have cultivated that vintage sound and done it better. The string sections probably fare the best overall, but you could not convince me that any of the horns didn't come from a preset, or the percussion lines weren't imported from a half a dozen other Syco Records albums. And what in the nine hells are gang vocals doing on this album? That's the other major issue that really irked me with this record, because it seemed to be dragged both towards pop and R&B and instrumentation. And Ella Henderson is the sort of singer that probably works best in the former category. Her delivery is very poised and theatrical, the type that bleeds of real classical training behind her vocals. And while she can go a little bit broad, it works because she's infusing the songs with a lot of potent emotion and she's able to belt here. In other words, she fits very cleanly into the classic pop mold as a singer. And the more this album chooses to let her do precisely that, the better the record really is. And now we get to the trickiest category, and that's establishing unique personality. Let me be blunt here. We've got no shortage of pop singers who opt for a lot of the same subject matter that Ella Henderson does. And while she definitely does carry more maturity than most of them, it's hard not to look at her and say, well, Fox's is doing a lot of the same thing with a similar voice, better production, and more oblique and interesting songwriting, so why don't I just go back and listen to Glorious a few more times? But after doing precisely that, I still ended up coming back to Chapter 1 for some of the songwriting, which is markedly better and more refined than one would expect. The real gimmick that some of the song sequencing, as described by Ella herself, is that the first song would describe the situation, with the second song showing how she gets through it, which means the songs aren't so much self-contained as they are locked into pairs. And I'll be the first to say that they could do with a little bit more connective tissue and description in the songwriting to really drive that point home. But to her credit, there are some interesting situations described here. Take the pairing of Glow and Yours, the former being a love conquers all anthem that comes through with the dramatic irony in the second song that she hasn't even confessed her love in full yet. Or take the pair of Pieces and The First Time, the verse where she dumps a guy who doesn't want to work on it to fix the relationship, says that it works in pieces, and then when he goes on to date someone just like her instead of fixing his issues. Yeah, it's a little bit self-satisfied in the I told you so vein, but it's not like she's wrong in describing how some guys would behave in that manner. Or take the warring emotions of All Again and Give Your Heart Away, where she encounters an ex who has supposedly changed, but yet she fights off her own impulses to reconnect as she knows deep down it probably isn't worth the heartache. And those two songs are a great fit for her more mature delivery. And it's telling that the one unpaired song on this album is Missed, the moment where she finally has real control of the situation and then realizes that it's not worth it to pursue this relationship and chooses to let him go once and for all. It's a potent capstone to this chapter as described, and it's really good for anchoring the album. I like the song. So in other words, yeah, I like Chapter 1 by Ella Henderson. Yeah, the songwriting isn't as detailed or intricate as I'd normally like, and yeah, it'd be nice to see her backed by more production with a budget or more interesting producers working with her, but with what she's got here, Ella Henderson makes a lot work and delivers some pretty damn solid pop songs. She definitely has room to grow as a songwriter, but there's plenty of a firm foundation of nuance and maturity here that reflects a lot of heartfelt emotion, and that she's got a good head on her shoulders in terms of defining nuance and making smart relationship choices that are best for her, and I can appreciate that. And considering the songwriting was never egregiously bad, yeah, it kind of worked. So for me, I'm giving this album a very light 7 out of 10 and recommendation. Folks, Ella Henderson has made some major headway on the UK charts, and she's slowly starting to climb up the charts in Canada as we speak right now. While I'm not one to make a lot of big predictions, if Ella Henderson suddenly gets big in the next year or two, well look, I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. What do you guys think of this album? Does it really stand up as a good debut coming from Syco Records? Should she speak to do more on these albums? Yeah, I'd be interested in your opinion, so toss it in the comments. If there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.